and welcome back to the Dwarven Tavern. I am Dr. Jeff Owens, hammer hand, apparently, which, thank you for that. That was wonderful. One of the comments was great. Sounding the horn to the deep to call forth the taverniers, as always, and it's incredibly cool to get that kind of response. I love it. So, this is a continuation of the Pathfinder core rulebook, $59.99. Notice I didn't have to look at the cover that time. I can be taught, and it is from Paizo.com, and check them out. So far, it's gotten high marks. It's gotten 5 stars all the way across the board, and I will tell you why. This time, we're talking about classes. And the 10, no, there are 12 classes. 12 classes. The Alchemist, the Barbarian, the Bard, the Champion, the Cleric, the Druid, the Fighter, the Monk, the Ranger, the Rogue, the Sorcerer, and the Wizard. Now, here's the thing. I witnessed or read about and listened to a work by Tchaikovsky, who did something like 500 or 300, some ridiculous number of variations on a theme. And that kind of thing has always fascinated me because apparently when you get a melody or something etched into my brain, it stays there as such forever. And coming up with variations on a theme has always been a challenge for me. And, you know, I am a musician, so I'm actually the flute guy, as known by many in the early 2000s and before that. So I play flute and bass and guitar and piano and saxophone and clarinet and bagpipes and so forth. And it has always been a challenge for me to come up with variations on a theme, basically. But why do I say this, you ask? As you probably should. Because they have created a different method for rolling up characters that it still feels... They successfully kept the feel. Excuse me. They successfully kept the feel of 3.5, the 3.75 of Pathfinder, whilst changing it up and shuffling the deck, as it were, for the what's the word I'm looking for? For the preparation process, and you still have the core classes. I'm not nuts about the goblin, the Scrappy Doo factor, and I've said that, so I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But the various player races, I do so love the gnomes, what they've done with gnomes and halflings, and a lot of that is visual. But they stopped making halflings miniature elves, and they began to present them as the hobbits they are, with the big hairy feet and all that. So the halflings, big thumbs up for that. I so appreciate that, because I've always loved halflings, and being a dwarf, I've always found halflings to be wonderful little people. And so there it is. There is that. So the dressing that they put on this, especially with, I'm not an enormous fan of the artist War, who is Wayne Reynolds. I'm not an incredibly huge fan. I do like his work, but there are a few fundamental stylistic choices that I don't particularly care about. But you know, if you like his artwork, that's fine. I'm not putting it down. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff, and it definitely has that signature feel for Pathfinder, because he has become such an integral part of the Pathfinder family that I'm not crazy about some of the monsters, and just like I said, some of the stylistic choices, I don't agree with. But that's just me. I am not an artist myself, but you don't have to be. You don't have to be Gordon Ramsay to taste a crappy dish and to recognize it as such. So whilst I do know how to cook, and quite well, would say, I am not an expert in art. I don't, but I do know what I like, as do you and everyone else who has eyes that can see. So, what is it about the characters? I notice a huge, there's a shadow there. What is it about the characters, the character creation process in Pathfinder that is different from their Pathfinder 2e than 1e, or even 3.5, which 1e and 3.5 are largely the same. It's like Pathfinder came up with some house rules that they didn't like about 3.5, and changed it and put out a book of house rules. So, so we will quickly move over to the classes chapter, because that's what this show is about, this episode, and talk about the creation process and how they've handled it, which I find very interesting. So let me start off by saying that when I first looked at the skill feats, the list of feats, because you got the feats in the feats section, which we'll cover that later. There was no point blank shot, and there was no cleave or great cleave, and I'm like, what have they done? They've ruined it. But alas, they have taken, and as I was talking to Aaron Shanks, the director of marketing for Paizo at Gen Con, and Mark Seifert. Seifter, I'm so sorry, it's Mark Seifter, or Seifter. I never did ask him how to pronounce that last name. We'll call him Arcane Mark, because that's the moniker he goes by with his podcast, I think it was, he said. But yeah, he's a very cool guy. I love everybody at Paizo. They're so cool. They're good guys. It's just like Palladium and Kevin, the creator and prolific writer thereof. He's a great guy. I love him. He is fantastic. He's what the owner. These guys are like what the platonic owners of and operators of companies are supposed to be. Not full of themselves. They're humble and knowledgeable, and it's just, and that's a review of them. It's a review of the owners. So when you look at the class, you get one of the coolest things, I think, and this is mostly, I believe, this is mostly for the newcomers, is the section of each class describes the interests and tendencies of the various classes they want to play. So, for example, if you have a character, because you're supposed to do the character concept first, and then the actual rolling, and then the solidifying and polishing thereof. And this is more toward the polishing end. Meaning, you say, I want to create a rough and tumble character who's smart and witty, and whose main concerns was not combat but more like helping others. Well, okay, so then you would go to each character class and say what character class, their tendencies, what are they? And you would go to the character classes. For instance, We're going to switch over here to the Bard real quick. And I have a special place in my heart for Bards because I am one, both in game and out. As I mentioned before, I'm a musician, and I love telling stories. And so each character class has these following entries. During combat, during social, while exploring, in downtime, you might, and others probably. And I just thought that was clever as all get out. Because, just for instance, the Bard, and I'll pull up another one just for contrast. During combat, you use magical performances to alter the odds in favor of your allies. You confidently alternate between attacks, healing, and helpful spells as needed. So, the Bard he's not necessarily a combat guy. He can hold his own in combat for the most part. But he's more useful in the background as a support character. And while I hate reducing, I really don't like reducing role-playing to terms such as AOE and DOT and so forth, because I think that takes the human factor out of it, just plain and simple. So, whilst he doesn't do a lot of damage in combat per se, he's very versatile. During social encounters, you persuade, prevaricate, and threaten with ease. And if you know what prevaricating is, you've probably done it. Actually, everybody lies. Little loquacious intrepidity in legerdemain. What's that from? While exploring, you're a font of knowledge, folk tales, legends, and lore that provide deeper context and helpful reconnaissance for the group's adventure. Your spells and performances inspire your allies to greater discovery and success. So, there's that, which is a little description of tendencies and abilities. So, there you go. In downtime, you can earn money and prestige. You can earn money and prestige with your performances, gaining a name for yourself and acquiring patrons. Eventually, tales of your talents and triumphs might attract other bards to study your techniques in a bardic college, like Kenneth. Or, I'm trying to remember the old first edition, the Magna Alumni. Kenneth, the Kenneth mandolin. Anyway, there were a number of colleges, bardic colleges, that existed in first edition D&D that they're kind of hearkening to here. You might, and this is the you might section. You might have a passion for your art so strong that you forge a spiritual connection with it. You might take point when tact and nonviolent situations are required. But wait, first a song. First, please. La. And there you go. Blah, blah, blah. So follow your muse, whether it's a mysterious fey creature, a philosophical concept, a physical force, or a deity of art or music, and with its aid, learn secret lore that few others have. And that could also be a dollar sign. That's the muse of many musicians today. I mean, everybody who, I guess, I don't know. I'm sure, I know I've met a few people who just the love of playing has lured them to the dark side of the music of the spheres. Which, I am one. I also enjoy the wallet of fullness, but with a musician, you got to get used to not having that, unless you got connections, and that's just a fact of life. Of course, YouTube has kind of evened that playing field. I'm actually going to be producing some stuff myself and seeing what happens. So others probably relish the opportunity to invite you to social events, either as a performer or as a guest, but consider you to be something of a curiosity in their social circles. Ain't it the truth? I've had a lot of invites to, especially to like pagan events and stuff like that, because they say I have a white aura when I play, and it confuses them because I don't think a lot of people have white auras. And you underestimate you. Others probably underestimate you compared to other spellcasters, believing you are little more than a foppish minstrel and overlooking the subtle power of your magic. This is also true. I get up on stage and I play the flute, or I play another instrument of whatever, the hulusa from China, and or the bagpipes from Scotland, and or whatever, and they say, "Oh, he's a, I don't know, whatever," and then they try and do something, and I like crush their faces with my hand. And they're like, "Oh, you're not a musician, are you?" I was like, "Yeah." Others probably respond favorably to your social charm and abilities. Of course they do. But remain suspicious of your beguiling magic. Yeah. Gaining people's trust, knowing you're a musician, try it. It's a challenge. And that is, and as it says in the book, that you aren't obligated to play your characters as this section describes. So, whilst these are wonderful guidelines, if you wanted to do something different with your character, for example, if you wanted to play so if you wanted to have a character that joined like a sect of champions, like paladin types, from this book, but you were a bard, if your character were, just wanted to be a bard, have the bard's ability, but still follow the same guidelines and behavior of your champion buddies, then you could certainly do so. You could act and behave exactly like a champion, and we'll go to that character here and see. You could act and behave exactly like a champion, but you're a bard, because what you do and how you behave is obviously and completely up to you. So, and this is the other example I wanted to bring up. Champion. During combat encounters, you confront enemies in hand-to-hand combat while carefully positioning yourself to protect your allies. And this is the champion character is kind of, they've removed the word paladin and inserted the word champion, because you can be a champion of any alignment or deity, right? I mean, you can champion any cause. I stand up for the wire ants, or I stand up for the honey ants, or ant lions, or the fungus that takes them over, cordyceps that grows out their skulls. I'm a champion of cordyceps. I don't know why. So you confront enemies in hand-to-hand combat while carefully positioning yourself to protect, and that's not necessarily lawful good. Like, the paladins are traditionally lawful good. Then you have the Paladin of Slaughter, which is a champion of chaotic evil. The Paladin of Freedom from the Unearthed Arcana book, which is chaotic good. You don't have to worry about that. If you're a champion, you're just a champion for whatever you decide to champion, which I think makes it a lot easier. During social counters, you are a voice of hope, striving to reach a peaceful solution that strengthens bonds and yields good results for all. I don't want to kill you, and you don't want to be dead. Danny Glover. What movie? While exploring, you overcome barriers, both physical and spiritual, providing inspiration to your allies through your actions, and when your fellow adventurers ask for it, providing moral and ethical guidance. So, very much so. In downtime, you spend much of your time in solemn prayer and contemplation, rigorous training, charity work, working at a soup kitchen, and fulfilling the tenets of your code, but that doesn't mean there isn't time to take up a craft or hobby. Okay? You might believe there's always hope and good will triumph over evil no matter how grim the odds. You might know the ends don't justify the means, since evil acts increase the power of evil. But evil feeds on itself, whereas good is its own reward. And you might have a strong sense of right and wrong and grow frustrated when greed or short-sightedness breeds evil. So there is that. Others probably see you as a symbol of hope, especially in a time of great need. Others probably worry you secretly despise them for not living up to your impossible standard, or that you are unwilling to compromise when necessary. Are you? Should you? Others probably know that you've sworn divine oaths of service they can trust you to keep as long as you wish to stay a paladin. So, paladin, no, champion. So, these are guidelines for the champion. Every class has them. So, if you don't know, and here's what we got. On one hand, if you don't know how these characters are supposed to, if you're new to the game, and you don't know how they're supposed to behave, fantastic. If you do know how they're supposed to behave, this is also helpful. And if you wanted to play, like I said before, the bard in a sect of champions, you can adopt these guidelines for your bardic character as well. So it's just options, and options are good. So next, you have the key ability for each class, which in this, it's either strength or dexterity for the champion, for instance. And if you wish to have a champion character at first level, your class gives you an ability boost of your choice to strength or dexterity. So you can have like an archer character champion, or your obvious brute. Not brute. Brute's the wrong word. Brute's a bad word. You can have your strong, and you know what I mean. Strong character type. And addressing the ability boost from character class, it's like this is all done during character creation. So it's not like you're walking to Earth and you decide to become a champion, and all of a sudden your muscles grow bigger. No, that's not how it works. What this is trying to emulate is the fact that it's just a boost to your character's ability. It more like it simulates, to me, it simulates your character is already big and strong, or fast and nimble, and the character class the training just kind of brings that out a little better. So it's like you became a champion because you were stronger or faster, not the other way around. You became stronger and faster because you became a champion. That will help, certainly, but it's just a different way of looking at it. It's a variation of a theme that I was talking about earlier. So, and then hit points are cool because you don't have to roll. You roll a d6. One hit point. So this little bomb does a lot of damage, as you can see. There's probably 200 dice in it. So you get a fixed number of hit points for your heritage, not your heritage, but your lineage, your ancestry, dwarf, elf, what have you. Then you get a fixed number of hit points for your character class, which is also modified by your constitution adjustment. So It still allows for a great deal of diversity. And, I guess diversity is important in some settings, not necessarily so much in others, but it's a thing. So, the other thing that every character class gets is an advancement table. And the advancement table, as I was talking to Aaron and Arcane Mark, they both said, I think at one point in time, that they always hated in other gaming systems where you level up and you don't gain anything except for like hit points or skill points or whatever. Especially in 3.5, there's some where like 5th level or 7th level or whatever, it's just I've leveled up, and you get an extra 1 hit point plus your con bonus, and that's it. But not so much in this game. You know what? I'm going to move this mic so it is not, for frack's sake. Hopefully that doesn't just. Okay, that's better. Sorry about that. So as you level up as a, and we'll go here to the alchemist class. As you level up as an alchemist, you, at first level, you gain ancestry and background, initial proficiencies, alchemy, a formula book, research field, and alchemist feat. Now, every class gets, I have seen, gets its own thing when it comes to feats. You get class feats, and the research field is unique to the alchemist, because with the research field you can be a bomber, a chirurgeon, and I'm going to pronounce it that way. It's CHIR, so it could be chirurgeon, or it could be pronounced surgeon for all I know. Or a mutagenist, okay? And then I don't know if any other classes have it. I'm pretty sure you can. Let's see, the champion feat. Yes, deity and cause for the champion. It's kind of like the field, the research field, for the alchemist. That's the word. You can. It's a deity and cause. So a paladin, you can be a paladin, which is neutral, is lawful good, of course. You can be a redeemer, which is neutral good, full of kindness and forgiveness. You get the glimpse of redemption, champion's reaction, and the lay on hands. And then the liberator is chaotic good. And there you have it. So the each, when it's possible to have a I'm trying to formulate my sentence while reading it. While every character doesn't have its own line, like the barbarian is a barbarian. You can have different sub classes, I guess, like the animal rager and the fury. Those are two types of barbarian kits, or I guess you could call them kits, sidebars, where they have if you want to just pull it out of the book, don't rip my book, but if you want to pull it out of the book and play it just as such, it's got all of their stuff already chosen and that. But they're still barbarians. Now with the alchemist, you've got the research field, and other classes may have something like that as well. So one of the things that Arcane Mark at Gen Con told us was that if you no, he didn't say if you. He said when they were designing this game, when they were designing this set of rules, they They wanted to make it simpler, but they also wanted to be able to capture the depth of character. And with this particular set of rules for the classes, they certainly have. They've definitely maintained the depth. So that was making it simple for newcomers who are not used to the game or gaming at all, which is always possible. There's always new gamers coming in. The veterans, such as myself and probably most of you out there, will understand the importance of character depth and being able to flesh out your character. I had a very serious argument with someone who disagreed with my how to roll up a character thing about rolling dice and keeping the highest and roll them again and keep the highest and roll them again and keep the highest for your character generation, saying that it produced too many 18s, that removed all character depth. And I'm like, you just suck as a gamer is what it is, because you can do that. You can have all 18s and you can have all perfect scores and still be a very deep character and very vulnerable. Just depends on how good the dungeon master is or the game master and how good you are as a player. Personality is a thing, and you should get one. So at second level, the alchemist gets an alchemist feat and a skill feat. At third level, they get a general feat and a skill increase. And that's something that I wanted to mention about the skill increases. You get proficiencies. You get 4 levels of proficiency. You get trained, expert, master, and legendary. And if you are trained, and I will read from the book. Trained proficiency gives you your level. If you're untrained, you get 0. You get 0 bonuses. If you're trained, you get your proficiency bonus equals your level plus 2 for trained, plus 4, and I should be able to remember this. I apologize. I'm remiss. Plus 2 for trained, plus 4 for expert, plus 6 for master. So it's your level plus 2, plus 4, plus 6, or plus 8 for legendary. Meaning that if you had 2 15th level chefs, and because you have to be 15th level or better to be a master or a legendary, at any one feat or skill. So you can both have the same skill points in, say, sauces, like a Béarnaise or Italian, one of the 5 master sauces. And you have a Voulette. And you have one of them who is trained in sauces, but he's more of a dessert guy, which he could do the Béarnaise. But he's only trained in sauces, so he gets his level plus 2. However, the other 15th level chef is legendary at sauces. Like Wolfgang Puck. Is he a good guy with sauces? I'm not really sure. I'm a Gordon Ramsay fan, so so when you have them both, they're both the same level, but they're both making a sauce. So there is a much better chance that the legendary saucier is going to create a better sauce than the other 15th level chef who is just trained in sauces. That is so much depth of character because, you've got everybody. I mean, it's just like me and everybody else out there, all you guys, you're very highly trained, maybe legendary, masterful at something, right? So you may suck at something else, like probably everybody does suck at something. I know I suck at a few things, more than a few things. But the depth of character that this allows for having various levels of skill, and this is with the same number of skill points in a thing. Um, or actually, we'll get to skill points, skills, because I don't believe you even have there are even skills here. Um, it's all you take the skill and then it's your level plus your proficiency, which eliminates the need for the assignment of skill points every level. I'm pretty sure that's the way it is here. I'm not sure. I haven't read that far into the book. I've been drooling over the classes. So with with that being said, every level you go up, you gain from it. Either an alchemist feat and then the alchemy thing. And the alchemist feat, the skill feat, alchemical expertise, which is a special ability, alertness, ancestry feat, double brew, which is an alchemist ability, and that's at 9th level, and a skill increase. So you get a ton of stuff every level that makes you better. And that's for every class. Every class does this, and it's fantastic. I love it. This is so 5 axis. And so that's where I discovered that with the feats, and I will go here to fighter. Not the monk. The monk is cool. Monk is badass in this, by the way. So fighter feats include first level things like double slice, which is 2-weapon fighting with a -2 penalty. If the second strike is made with a weapon that doesn't have the agile trait, so you could get double, two-handed fighting with a rapier and a main gauche, or a battle axe and a hand axe, or something like that. Just depending on the weapons. If the weapons have the agile feat, then you don't get the -2 penalty. Then you have things like point blank shot and power attack, and this is where all of those feats that I couldn't find in the feats section reside, because they are fighter feats, which does mean that you could probably take a level or 2 in fighter and get some of these cool combat feats, but wizards can't have them because wizards they're not combat guys. Wizards and rogues have their own feats that they concentrate on, and so forth. So you don't get to make the fighter an obsolete and useless class if everybody gets all the fighter feats without being fighters. So with rogues, for instance, you get like nimble dodge and Pathfinder and twin feint, which is you're wielding 2 melee weapons in a different hand. So it's very much like the double strike, or the double slice, excuse me, and with the 2 maces, double slice with a mace. It's very much like that. So they've also given the other character classes their own thing that they can do, which I find very cool. Mobility, quick draw, unbalancing blow, magical trickster, poison weapon, sabotage, reactive pursuit, and so forth for rogues. So they all have their own sets of feats, which some of them overlap. Which because if you can draw a dagger, you're going to stab a biatch. Whether you do it like a fighter, a barbarian, a rogue, or a cleric, or a champion, it's still inserting the knife from point A to point B, and your opponent is somewhere in point A and a half. So there is that. That makes that. All of the classes I have found to be very well balanced. They all have some samples of various different sorts of that class. And like the Animal Ranger is a sample of a ranger that focuses on various, being the animal guy. And then what is the other one? There's another sample of the ranger. There's the animal guy and the archer. So I have a ranger named Eldegron, who is he is an archer Wujin character, which is an awesome combination. And it's a Gestalt character from the Unearthed Arcana in 3.5. So Eldegron is pretty cool. But this gives you the option. And their archer is a half orc, it looks like. That's cool. So each of the, so that's the other thing about specialization and customization is that you can have two characters, the exact same class, two rangers walking side by side. One is covered with, like tribal tattoos and totems and looks very barbaric and riding like in this book, they have looks like a velociraptor because he's a tiny little dude, riding a velociraptor or riding a Utah raptor whilst, having a velociraptor run out in front of him because Utah raptors are big mofos, as you know, or should know. And the velociraptors are tiny little fellas that will eat your face in a moment. Just a moment while I eat this fellow's face. Because they're English, they're British. And so you can have that guy here walking alongside this other dude who's dressed all in like leather, has a bow, and his quiver full of arrows with the archer's bracer, which if you need that, you're not necessarily that good. But an archer's brace is very important for protecting that patch of skin that the unwary and the unexperienced tend to rake off with their bowstring when it goes off. After firing an arrow for a while, you learn how to avoid that. Which was one of the first things my dad taught me when I was little. So, and you can have them walking side by side, both rangers and two completely different characters. For instance, my dwarf, I just rolled up, or I'm in the process of rolling up a dwarf who is an alchemist. I've never played an alchemist before, so I thought it would be neat. So I'm rolling up a dwarf who is he would shoot the coal and whatever other mineral his clan would have him do because he was a bomber. So he would take the bomber research field, which would allow him to come up with these alchemical mixtures. And I got this also from my dad, speaking of my dad, who at the age of 9 was he was a dynamite handler in the coal mines of Kentucky at the behest of his older brother, who apparently didn't care that much about family because he would allow my dad, who was 9 years old at the time, to he would take the quarter stick, half stick, or full stick of dynamite and crimp the primer onto the fuse, put the fuse in, and take the ramrod and slide it back into the hole they drilled under the coal, and GTFO and push the plunger. Very, very movie stuff. I was fascinated when my dad told me he did that. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and it really is. And then and there you'd have it. So, kind of as an homage to my dad, I decided to make a bomber dwarf who was the mineral handler. Now, if you could have another alchemist who was who was a mutagenist like the lethal lizard from Spider-Man, who works with recombinant DNA and secret formulas that turn you into Mr. Hyde or what have you. And the mutagenist gets an entirely different skill set and set of abilities than the bomber or the chirurgeon, which is very cool. So you've got one class, 3 different options, and then a limitless number of variations on a theme, which we keep coming back to, which is cool. Also in this chapter, they have, beyond the sorcerer and the wizard, there is a archetypes section. No. Let's talk about the animal companions and familiars. Now, with the animal companions and familiars, they've paid a little bit more attention, because I know even people who don't have animal companions and familiars want to know more about them, because animal companions and familiars are the coolest freaking thing in the games. Because my first character in first edition D&D had 2 trained war dogs, Julius and Baron. And they were like Mastiff hounds. They had leather armor. I basically blew my entire starting pay on my war dogs, and I trained them with, the basic commands: attack, peace, friend, whatever, guard, so forth. Personally, because I fell in love with that John Wayne movie where he had the dog, and his name was Dog, and John Wick. Your animal companion uses your level to determine its proficiency bonuses. You get that. An animal companion for ability modifier begins with base ability modifiers of strength, dex, con, intelligence, wizards, wisdom, and charisma. So you get either pluses or minuses off of that. The base statistics for a young animal companion, and it covers all of it, and their hit points. It has an ancestry. It has an ancestry from its hit points. No, it's the other way around. It's hit points from its ancestry. From its type, plus a number of hit points equal to 6, plus its constitution modifier for each level you have. So your animal levels up with you. My heart. It's beautiful. Because after you get to like 3rd level, your animal, it doesn't become a detriment, but it becomes a danger. It's in danger going with a higher level character. So something that you would shrug off, your animal would just be blown away. It'd be pink mist, and nobody wants that. That's terrible, right? So you got mature animal companions, nimble animal companions, savage animal companions, and various companion types. And then it has a whole list of animals. Birds, the badger, a bear, the dromaeosaur, which is also called the raptor, right? The wolf, and so forth. And I'm praying that, and I imagine that you could use a lot from the bestiary, whatever I did with that. You could use some of the things from the bestiary. An aboleth, no. The animal companion section is 5 frickin' axes all over the place, just because I love that. And then you've got the archetypes, which it tells you how to multi-class barbarian characters. And just for instance, let me find a good one here. A multi-class champion, okay? The multi-class champion archetype greatly improves defenses, particularly armor. It's a great way for a character to gain armor proficiency or a powerful defensive reaction. So When you do archetypes, and I'll read a bit of this. Applying an archetype requires you to select archetype feats instead of class feats. Start by finding the archetype that best fits your character concept. Then, where'd I go? Then I completely lost where I was because I was distracted by other other words. Start by finding the archetype that best fits your character concept, and select the archetype's dedication feat to one of your class feat choices. Once you have the dedication feat, you can select any feat from that archetype, or archetype, depending on how you want to pronounce it, in place of a class feat as long as you meet its prerequisites. So, what I was saying earlier about the fighter. You can do a fighter archetype, which is fighter dedication. You could be, say, a monk fighter. And this is kind of their version of the Gestalt and multiclass at the same time. And I think this works out so much better. You can do basic maneuvers. You gain a first or second level fighter feat. You get fighter resiliency. And these are all feats that you can choose. You don't have to have them, or you don't get them automatically. You get access to them. Opportunist, you gain an attack of opportunity reaction found on page 142. Advanced maneuver, you gain a fighter feat for the purpose of meeting prerequisites. Your fighter level is equal to half your character level. And so forth. So, there you have it. And the archetype, and I think it's best described here in this passage where it says, from the text, there are infinite possible character concepts, but you might find that the feats and skill choices from a single class aren't sufficient to fully realize your character. Archetypes allow you to expand the scope of your character's class. So it's much like what I was saying earlier. And I wanted to spring this on you later because just when you think it's limited, it becomes not so much. So, I mean, just imagine a barbarian druid or an alchemist champion, or, I mean, and you just take the 12 and you put them in together. A wizard bard, or, and so forth. So, 5 axes for this chapter because it's just replete with options. And as gamers know, and I'm sure you do too, being a gamer, or at least watching this to want to decide if you want to become a gamer. As you know from experience, options are one of the most important aspects of the game, of playing the game. If you have more options, that's why Tavernier Ian hates first edition D&D, because he says that skills make the character. And that may or may not be true, but a skill set certainly helps define the character. And it was, as Aaron and Mark said at Gen Con, quite righteously, is that this is simpler but greater depth. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I agree with it completely. The depth of character, I am actually really, because another thing too, first of all, I'm really looking forward to our first campaign of this. We're probably going to stream it. But the other thing is that this sounds like a game. It has become, to me, in my opinion, to be of course it's my opinion if I'm saying it, it seems to me to be a game that is going to require fewer house rules or fewer homebrew interventions to make it playable or to make it better. I think that their selection of options has become very, very decent, and it's really made a good game. Don't know how else to say it. And me with a degree in English. So, anyway, this is the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder. I'll put it over here so it's not sparkly. Try and keep them. Pathfinder Core Rules Second Edition. $59.99 from Paizo. So go to paizo.com/Pathfinder and tell them that Dr. Jeff from the Dwarven Tavern, Dr. Jeff Hammerhand, has sounded the horn and has called the Taverniers to get the book because it's fantastic. Next time, I don't know if I want to do an entire show based on just the skills or just the feats. We're probably going to do like several sections after this because they're much smaller than the classes, but I wanted to spend a good amount of time on the classes because the classes are just so cool. And so next is skills and feats and equipment and spells and the Age of Lost Omens, which is curious. I haven't read that yet. Playing the game, game mastering, which apparently has precluded the need for a Dungeon Master's Guide or Game Master's Guide. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to come out with one of those or not. I kind of hope they do. I hope they come out with a lot more books because I love the more books of it. And then game mastering and crafting and treasure, which I may read ahead to see what that's about. And then, of course, the appendix, which may or may not have to be removed, depending. It is not a vestigial organ in this book, however. So, with that being said, I will leave you to it, and until next time, on behalf of the entire cast and crew of the Dwarven Tavern, I am your host, Dr. Jeff Goins, or Dr. Jeff Hammerhand, and we wish for you to want for nothing but adventure, of course. And at first I feared it, then I charged. It's the only way you can kill it, the only way to be sure, besides nuking it from orbit. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Okay. I hope the sound was